بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلا تطع الكافرين وجاهدهم به جهادا كبيرا.
Who's the sheikh? That's not a sheikh.
That's the boyfriend.
Not a sheikh.
No, not the boyfriend.
No. Doctor, he's got a master's,
No,
PhD.
he just tells the truth, then the truth.
How did you know you can trust him?
Because it's
Because
not about him.
It's a path to get back to the best generation.
That's the brother.
I get it.
MashaAllah. Takbir. Allah Akbar. Allah. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I call this one blinded looks because sometimes we have our eyes wide open, but it's as if we have our hands over them, so we can't see.
I get it.
Now, when I use an analogy like that, some people may think, I don't do that.
That's true. Yes,
But
indeed.
I think it's important to slow down and take a look at some of the many ways that most of us, or all of us, can fall into this.
You better believe it.
We all know about good and evil.
بالقدر الله.
And good, of course, is the straight way, the clear way, the moral way, and the way that brings us closer to Allah, our Creator.
I know that's right.
And so, of course, evil is the opposite of that, which is crooked and immoral and the things that go against life and take us away from Allah and away from His guidance.
Can you see? Is it clear to you?
Now, perspectives, they make our perception, meaning that the way that you think affects the way you see things.
What are you saying? Pay attention.
And I was thinking of three thoughts from three thinkers who were looking at the same situation. It was a short clip that I saw online of two men that were in a restaurant, a McDonald's, fighting. So I was thinking one person may be looking at that and be shocked and thinking, fighting in a public place, while another thinker would be looking at the same situation, but maybe has become more accustomed to a rough lifestyle and probably had some fights of their own, and would instead be looking to see how one is more skilled than the other one, and he's only using one hand and things of this nature. While a third person may have grown up in that type of environment where this type of situation is something that happens regularly. So they're able to notice the scene, but look past it to very fine details. Like because the one guy was holding his food, how is the bag not breaking? And how come the lid for that soda is not popping off? And things of this nature. The same situation, but three people looking at it differently and able to understand or appreciate or pull out different types of understanding from the perspectives that they have and the perception that they had before the situation occurred.
Life is learning. Learning is life.
And these type of things, they should scream to us to understand that how you grow and what you know matters.
Oh, yeah.
It helps to develop the moves that you make.
Oh, yeah.
And we should also appreciate history on account of these type of situations, because it is one of the main and major factors in the way we think today and the way we act today, but also in our plans for moving forward. And so attached to that, also a person should understand why it's crucial that we respect and learn from our elders and those who came before us.
You better believe it.
Because they've got a part of the blueprint that we need to understand the situation and the shoes that we're in right now and the path that we're going to be traveling on moving forward.
Beef is Linda.
And if you picture two people looking at a third, and out of the two, one is older than the other one. And the third was giving sadaqah, giving charity.
MashaAllah.
Now, the older one was watching this, and the younger one comes and sees that and says, MashaAllah. It's a noble act to be giving the charity. But the older one sees that, and instead he makes dua, supplication, seeking protection for himself from those type of actions.
Subhanallah.
Now, of course, the young one may not understand that. But in maturity, he would think to, or he would understand to notice that there must be something that is not shown in the seemingly noble act. And what it was that the older one was watching before the young one came. And the older one knew that that person who was giving that charity had stolen those goods from those people and was only giving them crumbs from what they already owned in order to make himself or herself look like a seemingly good person. So there's a deceptive factor that was in play in the seemingly good act.
Subhanallah.
And Allah warns us about this crucial point. لا تلبسوا الحق بالباطل. Don't clothe truth with falsehood.
MashaAllah. Takbir. Allah Akbar. Alhamdulillah.
Like they say, the wolf in sheep's clothing.
No.
Alhamdulillah.
Now, the blind look is how we get caught up in moments or in motions, and we ignore the known history of the devil, of evil.
Oh, no, not like that.
When we take the blinders off, it increases the meaning in seeing. And it also can make the one who recognizes and takes the guidance able to do that, but also able to teach and guide one who is lost.
I know that's right. You better know this.
بقدر
Now, non-Islamic movements have fought, have killed, and have conquered.
Definitely.
And they still do today.
Can you see? Is it clear to you?
And Islamic movements have fought, have killed, and have conquered.
What?
And not so much today, but in some ways they still do.
I know that's right.
So one may think, well, what's the difference?
Act right actions.
The difference is sincerity, intention, the reason and reasoning.
Aim to be fair, to be balanced. Purpose.
You see, non-Islamic movements fought, killed, and conquered for materialism and other ways that take a person away from the Creator, that take a person away from Allah and His guidance.
No.
While Islamic movements allow a person to fight and kill and conquer only in ways that bring about peace and bring a person closer to Allah and His guidance.
Piety means you don't do something bad because you know Allah's right.
In non-Islamic movements, we find things like a slave ship called Jesus.
You got to be kidding me. No way.
Subhanallah. ليس كذلك.
Or we find things like money-hungry crusaders that were attacking Jerusalem.
The Holy Land.
And when I say money-hungry, the materialism was on a whole nother level. And there's even mentions of how they heard of some of the Muslims were swallowing some gold coins just in case they survived the attacks of these people. They would have some money to live off of moving forward.
Miskin.
So what they would do is kill and then pile up their bodies and burn them in order that they would be able to go through the ashes of their intestines and get some of these gold pieces.
That's a definition of extreme.
In non-Islamic movements, we also find fabricated text, as in the case with the Bible, in some of the examples we saw before, and also in issues of politics, like the so-called weapons of mass destruction, that the reality showed was not true. And instead of there being terrorists there that they were pointing at, they actually ended up arming people and creating those that they were accusing to be terrorists. Now, these same ideologies have almost entirely erased indigenous people on 3 different continents.
Subhanallah.
Some of the massacres you can see listed here. Historically, these actions have been followed up with even more amazingly sick amounts of civilian casualties. In the World War I, they say that the estimated number of deaths that were civilians, not combat fighters, civilians, is 1.7 million. In World War II, they say that the estimated death toll of civilians is 40 million. 40 million. Now, that's like erasing 60% of UK today. That's like erasing 60% of France today, today's population. Now, what did all of these actions do? They paved the way for legal stealing. And it's a wonder why these governments today, they don't take resources out of these lands at global market prices. Because if they did, it would destabilize their economies that survive and even thrive off of the post-colonial grab-to-get system that in actuality is stealing, is robbing them. But what they get allows them to have enough wealth that even their waste is more than actual food in the lands of those people that they're taking the resources from. Now, Islamic movements also have conquered places. We see this in Egypt, and we see this in Spain. However, there's some major differences, and you can see that in the marks that are left when the conquered land doesn't lose its culture and it doesn't lose its definition. you will find things that are in contradiction to Islam are still there. If it was something that was respected and held on to by the people, you still find the ancient churches in Egypt that were there before the Muslims took over the land. You're able to find manuscripts of the Bible in Egypt and in many Muslim lands, because some of these things, they weren't destroyed. And even the surrounding area wasn't destroyed. Because even though it's something that is against the teachings of Islam in many ways, it's something that other people hold high and had a sense of respect in it.
Piety means you don't do something bad because you know Allah's watching you, not people's watching you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم.
The Muslims learned information and copied information, translated and recorded information, and brought it back to some of these communities. And it helped them. This is how the lights were turned back on from the Dark Ages in Europe.
بقدر الله ما شاء الله.
We find an example of what I mean in the different kind of influence in Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa is said to be the richest man in history.
More money than Europeans? He had more than all of them?
But the point I want to make off of that is how he was able to be and become this.
More money than Europeans? Big time, big banking brother from the motherland. Powerhouse, super African, super brother, black excellence.
He was able to be or become this after the Muslims had taken over this land. Hence, he's an African from West Africa, but his name is Musa. Now, this is clear that the Muslims were there. And the only way he could be this rich and this wealthy is if his wealth was not taken from him. But what kind of wealth is this? It was enough wealth that when he made Hajj and he passed through Egypt, it's recorded in history that the gold that he left there, it changed the Egyptian economy for 10 years, maybe 12 years. One man changed an entire economy in Cairo, not in Egypt, in Cairo. And when we look to the other examples of when the non-Muslims entered lands, the people's property and land and tribes, communities, history was broken up, taken, erased, changed, and in many cases forgotten. Now, a trap of pointing fingers is delusion away from the clarity that I'm trying to bring here, which is that we need to be able to see good for good and evil for evil and separate between these two and not fall into the tricks of trying to name or blame individuals as if it's not the actions that matter. Because one person could be evil today and righteous tomorrow, or righteous today and evil tomorrow. Now, when a person is trapped and wrapped up in personalities, they don't follow the guidance. Instead, they end up following the personalities.
I know that's right. You better believe it. Opportunity cost. Cost of opportunity.
And this is very problematic because it prevents a person from actually reaching the conclusions and the destinations that are the best of ways.
Cost of opportunity.
So if we don't forget the basics, then we don't cover our vision when these blinders come. And when we do forget the basics, then we're distracted in politics and in pleasures and in other ways that pull us away from the guidance and the clarity and the way of good.
We run to Allah. You better believe it.
In fact, the goal of the greatest good, which is meeting Allah and having Him be pleased with us.
Yeah, so we take it easy and take it how come.
What we gonna do? You tell me. What we gonna do? This ain't the way, because they ready to let loose. If the United States president say, if you loot, we shoot. I'm ready to die. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you something. That's the problem that we got. That you see right now, it's gonna happen 10 years from now. And at 26, you're gonna be doing the same thing I'm doing. You understand that? 10 years. You're gonna be right here too. But he also got to. So what I need y'all to do right now at 16 is come up with a better way. Cause how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16. Putting yourself in harm's way is not the way. No, it's not. You and then other your counterparts the same age and that has that same power. Y'all come up with a better way. Cause we ain't doing it. It don't matter. Come up with a better way. You understand me?
We come to you to tell you what are you carrying from weapons will never work with us. We have faith in our chests. You have guns in your hands, and one day you will drop it. But our faith in our chests will never be evicted. That you must know it. And we will meet you again and again. Again and again.